Hello everyone, I'm Nnamdi Odipo. We're live in Abuja and this is the Ballot. A very good evening to you and thanks for joining us tonight. With less than 2 weeks to the presidential elections, we're still getting that mixed grill of optimism and skepticism from Nigerians, perhaps arising from the disposition of the candidates to setting national targets. But not to worry, we will attempt to get clarifications on some of those grey areas as much as we can here on the ballot, especially as it concerns the political parties, their candidates and their manifestos. Talking about manifestos, I intend to continue right where we left off on the last episode of the ballot with the ruling All Progressives Congress. But this time my conversation will be with a member of the APC-PCC Media Directorate. But before we get into that, let's bring you some of tonight's major highlights.
No new registrants choose the polling units and no voters indicated interest to transfer to them.
INEC confirms no voting in 240 polling units in 28 states and the FCT.
We're blessed with human capital that if you trade and develop can change the world.
Nigeria's future is in your hands, Labour Party presidential candidate Peter Obi tells the electorate. We review some national targets and gauge their prospects. We begin now with the meeting between the chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission, Professor Yakubu Mahmood, and the leadership of the political parties, I beg your pardon, in Nigeria. Perhaps the biggest takeaway from that meeting is the fact that elections will not hold in 240 polling units in 28 states and the Federal Capital Territory, and no voter indicated interest. The INEC chairman also expressed concern on attitudes of party agents and the increasing spread of electoral violence.
During the last continuous voter registration exercise, mainly for security reasons. Election will not hold in these polling units, and we have made the details of these polling units available to all political parties following the recent nationwide mock accreditation using the beavers. It is clear that some voters could not easily identify their polling units. This must not happen on election day. Consequently, the Commission is advising voters to confirm the locations of their polling units through a dedicated portal linked to our website.
With less than 2 weeks to the presidential election, the candidate of the Labour Party, Peter Obi, is reaching out to undecided young voters across the country with a message urging them to take a stand on the election now more than ever. Using a platform well known as mostly an online youth community platform, I mean Twitter, of course, the Labour candidate in a post on his official Twitter handle says Nigeria needs a leader who is capable of moving the country towards the direction of national rebirth. To quote him, he says, "I have a message for Nigerians, especially those that are sitting on the fence. It is decision time." Like the other leading candidates, Peter Obi appears quite adept at navigating the streets of Twitter, as the online streaming platform is reported to have about 20.5% of Nigerians using it. In the meantime, the Labour Party has condemned the attack on its supporters during the party's mega rally in Lagos.
This Lagos State Governor, who is the Chief Security Officer of the state, and all political leaders in Lagos State to condemn these provocative acts of violence and rein in any political supporter who may be involved in instigating these attacks.
Let's begin our main conversation for tonight. My guest is a well-known face in this part. He is a giant in his own right in Nigeria's media space, a veteran broadcaster and former Director General of the National Broadcasting Commission, NBC, Dr. Danladi Bako. He joins us here tonight on the Ballot as a member of the Media Directorate of the APC Presidential Campaign Council. Welcome to the Ballot, sir. Good to have you here.
Thank you very much, Namdi. How are you doing?
Very well, sir. I must confess that I have listened to various analyses of aspects of the renewed hope document of the APC. Again, I must say that even here on the Ballot, I have said, and I have said that severally, that it is a detailed document, but somewhat esoteric. Is that perhaps why, for instance, it isn't so clear on specific approaches capable of establishing and perhaps growing a middle class in Nigeria? Because even after nearly 8 years of the APC in government, some analysts would argue that the middle class is still missing in Nigeria.
Well, that's a contextual question. It depends on where you are coming from. We're coming from a background where the middle class had been eliminated, literally decimated, and amounted to barely about 10% of the actual size of the workforce and the population. But the truth of the matter remains that unless you grow the economy in a way that jobs are provided and the per capita income per head is improved upon, it's going to be difficult for you to really work on that middle class and sustain it the way it should. Of course, you know, with so many interventions, so many variables like COVID, like recession, world recessions, all sorts of stuff that come from other economies, you are subject to the vagaries and the vicissitudes of economic downturns.
But does the renewed plan factor some of these external shocks? Does it perhaps anticipate exigencies and also factor in plans on how to combat some of these exigencies and perhaps external shocks like you've just inferred?
Well, clearly, the economic plan, the way it is within the manifesto platforms, definitely will create better jobs, will create economy that has a basis on agro-allied sectors and industrialization. And you know, the moment industrialization comes in, you're talking about expanded refineries, revitalizing all the textile factories in the north. Once upon a time, there used to be Aba industrial area, there used to be Bompai industrial area in Kano, there used to be textiles in Kaduna, UNTL, Ariwa Textile, even Asaba had a textile. I mean, I remember there was Asaba Textiles, you know, which even had a football club called Asabatex. You know, so there were such industries that the quantity of oranges and mangoes that get destroyed and get to rotten away after harvest because we just have not managed post-harvest economies well. All these things are going to lead to an empowerment of that workforce to be able to prepare for the rainy day.
And create the middle class.
And create the middle class thereafter.
With respect, sir, there are real issues threatening the survival of the average Nigerian. How and why do you expect Nigerians to take your party seriously and the promises being made by your presidential candidates when in 2015 the APC campaigned against similar issues? I mean, of course, taking advantage of rising public disaffection of with the government in power at the time. Incidentally, Dr. Bako, similar situations exist now, and some would say that they are far more exacerbated in the prevailing circumstances. Are you confident that Tinubu would rise to power on the back of massive clamor for continuity, or that an opposition government, or perhaps even a dark horse, may just emerge riding on popular clamor like for change, like the APC did, or it happened to the APC in 2015?
You can see the templates that are already set by the APC government now. In the last 1 month, you have seen a few indicators. One of them is the Lagos Deep Sea Port. This is a huge industrial project that is going to provide jobs and jobs and jobs. That project was identified in Tinubu's blueprint some 20 years ago. You're talking about the Dangote refinery. Government made provision for such facilities, by creating an enabling environment. And now, even now as I speak, the Minister of State for Petroleum has insisted and provided facilities for more refineries to be set. And that's even before Tinubu comes on stage. So the ground is already set. Meanwhile, let me tell you that for every transaction, now we're moving into trillions of naira in terms of what the expenditures are and what it is with the USSD, mobile money, and all of that. Internet banking. Now, you know that one of the advantages of internet banking and these kind of cashless economy is that many more people will be trapped in the tax net, because that way all the transactions, you just need 5% of that transaction. Government will make money from 5% of the trillions of transactions that are taking place. In the last 1 month, I can tell you that the transactions on the mobile money platforms have increased more than 500%.
Dr. Bako, I'm chuckling, listening to you talk about the issue of taxation, because it's a very delicate topic for Nigerians.
Absolutely. But the taxing, remember that once upon a time, we had education tax, which brought us TED fund.
Yes.
That TED fund, we had all sorts of minor taxes. Even now, we're talking about VAT from 5% to 7.5%. That has helped a lot.
Yes, and I agree. And I do not think most Nigerians would differ on the issue of taxation or would, question the rationale for taxation.
Yeah.
They might, however, question the timing of some of these tax regimes being introduced, But then I would like for you to speak, and this is me moving along because we're fast losing time. I would like for you to speak to some of the innovative policies contained in the Renewed Hope document. And I'll give you an example. And I mean, while I was perusing the document, I saw the Found Nigeria project for funding education. There were others that I saw, like the one on security that talked about the SWAT-like security scheme for responding to emergencies. Yeah. I also saw some creative innovations on application of a blockchain application in Nigeria's digital economy. Perhaps, if it's possible to pick on some of these issues and just talk about how innovative they are.
The mere fact that a lot of Nigerian students don't have the capacity for their parents to pay for their school fees, and a Tinubu government is going to provide those kind of outlets and platforms that will provide loans, student loans, for you to be able to take a loan. Even Barack Obama took loan to go to school. So you can find out that a student that comes from a very disadvantaged family can take a loan, he can repay in 20 years. That is that's a major innovation. The tackling of ungoverned spaces in Nigeria. There are so many forests that have no element of technology. There is no barracks, no human life, except 1 or 2 small villages. Those have been occupied by bandits. Those ungoverned spaces are going to be tackled with technology by a Tinubu regime, because technology is available for you. Nnamdi, a man sits in his vehicle in Gaza Strip, and some missile is sent from a headquarters in somewhere else, and they kill a man inside his vehicle.
That is a society that takes deliberate action to tackle an issue that they consider germane.
Absolutely, and I think
is that where we're headed to under a Tinubu presidency?
Taking sophisticated technology very seriously in fighting crime. It's going to be a major part of crime. And of course, as you do know, the technology that is available, of shared technologies, when some of the other countries tell you that, whether it's Mossad or KGB or whatever, they tell you that something is going to happen in this country, so. They have the intelligence.
Okay, so this is something that is not limited to the Tinubu plan or manifesto, because I have had the opportunity to go through other party manifesto, and they all of the major leading candidates all talked about security or introducing technology to handling the issue of. But there's something that I must have missed. I must have missed the part where your party manifesto talks about putting a cap on public spending and cutting down the size of government officials. In an age where public spending and recurrent expenditure keeps rising and our national debt stock is leaping, what will be the approach of a Tinubu presidency?
I think in the first place, loans and foreign loans are going to be curtailed.
Okay.
They're going to be managed well.
Okay.
They're going to be more creative in the acquisition of such loans through other means of repayment. And they're going to be spread over a system where they're not just those kind of hard loans that come on their own. They're going to be mostly soft loans that can be used without necessarily incurring the huge amount of interest that we've accrued on all of these things. That's the first part. The second part is that budgetary process is going to be revised and reformed in such a way that the present deficit budget that we have is going to be turned around in such a way that it will be more productive and yield more for the economy of this country. And whether you like it or not, there are so many issues that are embedded, variables inside this, which for now, I think the devil is in the details much later. Because as you rightly observed, a lot of the ideas are there, but
Yes.
the details are still kept in abeyance.
Okay, at the very top, when we started, I did say that most voters are divided between optimism and skepticism, and so there may be, just likely be, a large number of undecided voters out there. What do you want to say to a young voter or to young voters who constitute the bulk of the over 93 million registered voters for this election, and who do not want the same structure that they have described and continue to describe as old school and same old?
First things first, you have an advantage of, let's talk about 18 presidential candidates, but in essence, let's talk about 4, because they're the leading 4. And within those 4, you can look at the past records of each one of them. The records of our candidate is the most unique selling point. One, the things he has done in Lagos, a 25-year blueprint that has produced a renewed, reformed, revised, renewed Lagos that is cleaner. I'm sure, Nnamdi, I knew once upon a time a few years ago, you did a story on Lagos Badagry Expressway.
That's true.
You did a story, fantastic story. And I saw
of course, in case you're watching, this is Dr. Bako, so I'm not surprised.
I saw you do a stand-up on that express near Ijanikin area.
Yes, please.
Amazing, isn't it?
Yes.
Now, that Lagos has improved much more than where you can.
And I agree. But why is it that anytime we reference Lagos, especially when it comes to your candidate, we take the good sides only? Why do we talk about the bad sides? Do we want to talk about
There are ghettos in New York, there are Bronx, Brooklyn, everywhere. There are ghettos in England from
Actually, Dr. Bago, you jumped the gun. I was going to talk about the Human Development Index in Lagos, especially between 2003 and 2007, when your principal was governor of the state. Do you want to remove the fact that during that time, and I do not, because so that I don't get fat checked, so I won't be specific with figures here, but I want to tell you that during that time there were issues of water pollution, lack of access to water, environmental pollution. In fact, you referenced the issue of the ghettos and all of that, and of course there was also the issue of traffic congestion. There was also the issue of ease to doing business in Lagos. I mean, if we begin to talk about this, do we now take the successes in isolation and remove the issues, the development issues, which also and continue to succeed in Lagos?
No, continue is a wrong word, because they have reduced drastically. I can assure you that crime, look, I was a victim of armed robbery several times in Lagos as a reporter myself in NTA, and I can tell you that many times in Lagos, everywhere I stayed, all parts of Lagos that I stayed, I witnessed. Today, the crime rate is much more lower. The environmental sanitation. In fact, there is an SA, special advisor to the governor, on drainages and sanitation. I mean, then the effectiveness of the refuse disposal, the effectiveness of LASTMA, the traffic management authority.
So Lagos is a model city
today. Lagos has a rail line, intra-city rail line, blue line. And Kaduna has just applied for loan to do its own blue line. That is a pace-setter state.
My director is in my ear telling me to move on real quick. So, I mean, time now to prepare for the last segment of tonight's program. It is called ticking the boxes, and our guest will be presented with a couple of targets and made to choose options that either reflect their prospects. Ticking the boxes is up next. A quick reminder that the targets in the boxes are mostly public policy issues, and that candidates or their proxies, in this case, Dr. Bako here is at liberty to choose whichever option best suits his view or his party's view. Otherwise, and of course, these targets are within a timeline of 4 years, which amounts to a president's first term in office. We begin with the first target in the box, crude oil theft. Dr. Bako, if you take a quick look at the screen there, do you think this is a target that your candidates can achieve if given the opportunity and the chance? I mean, can he end crude oil theft within 4 years of his administration? Is that a realistic goal? Is that unrealistic? Would your party be undecided on this matter?
I think it's a very realistic goal, because if you noticed, about a month ago, our candidate went as far as Baramatu in Okerenkoko in Delta State to go and see Tom Polo, and even Asari Dokubo, one of the kingpins in the Niger Delta, has endorsed his candidacy. That means they are prepared to carry on from where the Buhari regime is on working on oil theft elimination.
So we'll move on to the second item on the box. It's food sufficiency. I mean, this is one very germane issue for most Nigerians, considering the rising in the prices of food production, as a matter of fact, as well. Do you think food sufficiency is a target that your candidate, your principal, can achieve within the first 4 years of his administration? Is that a realistic target? Is that unrealistic? Are you undecided on the matter?
During all the rallies in Kebbi, Kogi, Benue, and Nasarawa, our principal, the candidate of the APC, spoke about agro-allied industries and boost for farming and boost for farmers. He will continue from where
so
the rice
that is realistic. That
very
realistic. And so we'll move on to the third target, low-cost mass housing. I do recall the Jakonde era where his emphasis was on low-cost mass housing for Nigerians. Would your principal, would your candidates continue in a similar light? Would he, within the first 4 years of his administration, focus on low-cost mass housing for Nigerians? Is that a realistic goal? Is that unrealistic? Are you undecided on the matter?
In fact, as it is, the more of the private sector involvement will boost the low-cost housing.
Low-cost, affordable housing.
Affordable housing. And I can assure you that the mortgages that will be reformed will provide for the success.
So we're taking realistic for the APC and its candidates for the third goal. And so number 4 and finally is universal health coverage. I mean, this is a target that we've put for most of the guests that we've had on the ballot. I mean, this is one target that's been interesting that we've always wanted their say on this. Is that a target that you think is realistic for your principal within the first 4 years of his administration? Do you think it's unrealistic? Are you undecided on this subject matter?
I think it's a very realistic target, but it's going to require a lot of work, a lot more work than we imagined, because primary healthcare is a very serious issue.
That's 4 for 4 on the board there. I'd like to thank you so much. Thank our guest for tonight, former Director General of the National Broadcasting Commission, NBC, and member, of course, of the Media Directorate of the APC Presidential Campaign Council, Dr. Danladi Bako. Thank you so much for coming on the ballot.
Thank you very much, Namdi, and best wishes. And just before I go, let me just acknowledge that being a homeboy at NTA, I started my career here.
Of course.
I can only say that...
Welcome home, Doc. Welcome back home.
I'm delighted that NTA can take the challenge of doing political programs well.
Thank you so much.
We shied away from, taking controversies. We run away from issues.
Thank you.
But this is a good start.
Yes, thank you so much. We are officially at 11 days in our countdown to the presidential election day. I hope the excitement is catching up with you wherever you are, of course, in Nigeria. If you're really invested in your future and Nigeria's development, then voting on election day is one sure way of having a say. You decide. I'll see you again same time tomorrow night. Bye for now.